All right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who don't know, this is Logan. And Logan is an actor, puppeteer, teacher, creator, puppet maker. Are there any other adjectives?
So many things. I wear a lot of different hats, but I enjoy the fashion of having them all on.
Excellent. And it's perfect because it's like you're wearing many different sweaters. So you can wear many hats, many sweaters, all of the above. This is beautiful, actually. Where did you get this?
I'm really trying to remember. I think I got it in Ontario, but at like a little market, not so different than like the black market in Halifax,
Oh,
where
like
they have.
Kensington?
Yeah, I don't think it was from Kensington, but it was from an area. God, I really can't remember. I just love colorful, fun, patchworky things, and when I see them, I have too many sweaters. But is there such thing, really?
Sweaters not in Canada. I think there's
Not in
definitely
Canada. It's already chilly. It's
I
August and
know.
it's already chilly.
We had like a hiccup of a heat wave and then we're back. We're back in the flow. All right. So, first I kind of wanted to start with how we initially met. And I believe that was your workshop on the Snail musical, right?
Yes, yes, it was.
And that was super fun. So you had done this snail musical, and then I went to go see it, and then I went to see it again, but with a friend, because I was like, this is impeccable. It uses like all kinds of puppetry, and I love children's musicals that like say more than just like, you know,
Yep.
just your you can have a lot more to it. And then I went to the two workshops and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And that was kind of my foray into kind of making puppets for the first time. And so it was a really beautiful opening door for me in my world of puppets. And I've been kind of like flirting with puppets for a while and finally took the leap because I knew that once I took the leap, there'd be no turning back.
That is what puppets are like. It almost feels like you're making like a blood oath once you get into puppets because it's hard to ever want to go back once you get in because it's so much fun.
Yeah, and there's so much like animism to it. So there's a lot of like I don't know, when you start working with them, you're like, oh, I see myself, I see parts of me, and like I see my shadow and I see my inner child. And yeah, so it's very I want to hear more actually about your hero's journey as a puppeteer and like how it came to you. Was it very just like it happened to you or you pursued it?
That's a great question. This is the first time I've ever been asked about my hero's journey as a puppeteer, which I love. And you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe at the end of the day, it is a hero's journey. In the literary sense. Um, I was always really interested in storytelling, which I don't think I realized as a kid. But all through my childhood, into like I was probably 12 or 13 before I stopped. I was making movies with stuffed animals and like doing live shows for my siblings with stuffed animals. Um, and funny enough, when I was a kid, because I love stuffed animals, I couldn't even tell you how many I have. They're still under my bed in my childhood bedroom. But and I did the voices and I moved them around, and it never occurred to me as an 8-year-old that I was doing puppetry. I was like, I'm just playing, but it's for an audience and there's a story. But then I really moved toward my background before being a theater artist was in animal husbandry and wildlife education. So I worked with animals and traveled across Canada doing biodiversity education and doing working in a wildlife rehab. So I was really passionate about the environment and about wildlife and conservation and climate and the planet. And I went to Dalhousie to study marine biology and struggled really bad with math and chemistry and the parts that I wasn't as interested in, and really slowly switched from my marine biology major to acting. And then I was doing a lot more theater at Dalhousie, and that was great, but I'd still never touched puppetry. Um, since oh, I forgot to say, in high school I did the puppetry for Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh,
And it's my grade 12 musical, and I directed it, and my best friend was supposed to do the puppetry, and his doctor told him that his heart was not strong enough to do that kind of aerobic puppetry because he had a heart condition. So I stepped in really last minute to do the puppetry. That friend is okay. I think he's fine. But that was my first real taste and I loved it. But then I didn't touch it again until I graduated university and I went to Mermaid Theatre of Nova Scotia to do their Animotion training program, which is when I did it, it was a 3 week intensive in all kinds of puppetry. And that was my no turning back point. And then from then on, I did puppetry in shows and musicals and building puppets for other companies, for my own company, touring around Nova Scotia with puppets, around Canada with puppets, and then very recently the world with puppets. Um, and there doesn't seem to be any going back, but I don't want to. So I'm happy to be on this like slingshot trajectory because it's a really niche thing, puppetry. I think it's
Hmm.
having a kind of renaissance. I think there's more desire for like practical magic in a world that is so full of AI and CGI and like so much, I don't know, artificial magic. Like I feel like there's a desire for more and more practical effects and puppetry and TV and film and on stage. Anyway, this was a really long answer, but
No, that's perfect. It's
now I
perfect.
am here and I am actually grateful enough to say that I make a living, I would say at least primarily off of puppetry. I do a lot of
Wow.
other things to pay the bills, but puppetry is a really big part, which
Mhm.
makes me feel really happy.
That's incredible. Okay, I love that you mentioned the Animotion because I've been like really interested in that for a while, and that's awesome that that really, really did propel you into like a puppet career,
Yeah.
which is really cool. So that's really exciting. I will definitely like it's been on my radar again, like that effect of like if I get into puppets, there's no turning back. But
I can't recommend it enough. And like it's just like this weird little secret kind of tucked away in Windsor, Nova Scotia. But
Mhm.
the fact that Nova Scotia has probably, I'm biased, but I think the best, if not one of the best puppet institutions and theaters in the country, you
Wow.
know, 40 minutes from Halifax. It's amazing. And the people there are amazing. And what has really kept me going beyond Animotion is once you do that training and you meet the team there and you learn from them, the support has been ongoing. I've gone
Mm.
back so many times. They've taught me how to make masks, how to do puppetry for television.
Wow.
I've toured with them as a puppeteer across North America. Like for anyone even a little interested in puppetry, I could not recommend Animotion enough because the worst case scenario is you have a great time for a few weeks and learn a new skill, and the best case scenario is you've got puppet support for, I want to say life. I mean, I got a lot of life left, but so far it's been really
Mm.
steadfast and wonderful.
Yeah, you know, also love that you mentioned the AI kind of role in it because that was actually something that I wanted to talk about was like first, how do you feel like because it's been an accidental question in a lot of my podcasts so far. It hasn't been intentional, but it keeps happening. So I'm like, I guess this is something we're talking about now. But then also like have you found has it affected much of the way that you exist? But as a puppeteer, have you felt pretty protected?
I think as a puppeteer, I almost feel as protected as possible because it's one of the few art forms that I feel like AI can't touch. Obviously, for years and years, we've had like animatronic puppets, and like there are ways to mechanize and computerize puppetry. But true, like real puppetry, you have to have a living thing because you can't breathe life into an object with another object. So, in a weird sense, I feel like I've chosen a niche that is actually very AI proof.
Hmm.
um, that obviously doesn't go for, I know, I'm sure there are people using it to design puppets. Like I think it's quite insidious in the arts as a whole.
Hmm.
But the actual act of puppetry, you have to have breath to give life
Yeah.
to a puppet. So that's me coming at animatronics. They have their place, but I don't think animatronics are puppets.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I'm definitely not like anti machine in any way, but there is definitely that question of the artist and the fear of being replaced. And something that's been coming up a lot in expressing myself as an artist is like, oh yeah, is my like as artists we can through certain systems learn to compare and compete. Um, but that is another really beautiful thing about puppetry is like you have to be in collaboration because you need 10 people running the big ones, you know? Like it has to be a team because you just came back from Eco, right? Which is a project you did. That was your world tour.
Yes. Yeah, I was traveling for just over 10 weeks with the Herds as part of ECO, which was the emerging company, which is a great acronym, very astute for the project. Yeah, and the biggest puppet I worked on was an elephant, and there was five of us operating this elephant. So it's really the most connected I think I've ever felt to other people is operating a puppet because there's just such a it's weird. It's weird. I think um and maybe it's the older I get or the better I understand myself or the world, but I do really feel there is magic in puppetry and there is something a little otherworldly. And you see it, and a lot of people are afraid of puppets. And I think the reason is there's that uncanny, I'm looking at an object and I know it's an object, but why do I think it's alive? Um, and I think, yeah, that human connection that begets puppetry is the magic. So yeah, I'm not worried about technology coming for puppetry because I think puppetry is one of the oldest art forms in the world.
Mhm.
Like you can look at, they've discovered cave paintings, I can't remember where, that were painted in such a way that with the flicker of firelight, they would move, they would shift to tell a story, which it's not quite shadow puppetry, but like really bringing objects to life is such a fundamental part of human nature.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm going on a tangent about the beautifulness of human connection, but
No, it's
yeah.
beautiful. I think the interesting thing, like a big part of like indigenous teachings is animism and like, acknowledging like in a sweat lodge, the stones are the grandmothers and the grandfathers are the logs. And like there's a feminine and a masculine and like they acknowledge the animism within quote unquote, Western perceived inanimate objects. And so I do feel like, yeah, being able to connect with something and like care for something that is relatively inanimate with like a deep, it's like when you clean your house, like you can tell when someone cleans the house with like so much care and ceremony. And you're like, oh, why does it feel different than just like a regular clean house? It's because they recognize the life and like the atoms of everything.
Totally.
It was
Yeah.
really beautiful. I've definitely had some very like interesting experience with DJ Stims was my first like big puppet. Um and working with DJ Stims has been interesting because I met my first puppet fear with DJ Stims.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that people had fear of puppets, but I was like, yeah, people are scared of clowns. That makes sense. Like totally. I just didn't perceive it because the Muppets, like we've been raised
Of
like
course.
it's like a parent figure to a lot of kids. So I was like, really? But I was like, of course, we all have fears. But I took DJ Stims to Pride, and like DJ Stims was so beloved at
Hmm.
Pride, and it was so wild. Like people just were like so happy to engage with Stims, and if you have any kind of like neurodivergence, I find puppets can be really supportive because it's like sometimes maintaining eye contact with a human for a long time can just be a lot.
Yeah,
And so a
totally.
puppet, and it actually for me personally, oops, my little hand did a thing. For me personally, I really like being able to engage and watch a conversation. I don't know, it's just very neat because part of my design, like I direct a lot of things, and so being able to actually observe helps me kind of take in more information and not feel overwhelmed as well and not be too intense on people because of my intensity. Like I can't yell at someone, but my puppet can. So
Yeah. Oh, totally. Puppets are like the thing you just said there that immediately struck me that is I've just noticed to be true from the very beginning is I think a lot of people get to a certain age where we feel we've lost our license to play. Um, it's part of growing up. It's part of society telling us to stop playing and join capitalism and whatever. There's a lot of elements to it, but there's something about puppetry, and the reason I love teaching adults and working with adults is a lot of time it's the first time they've played in a long time. And like even with young people, like with teenagers now, I find that age where people feel it is not cool to play anymore is actually shrinking. Like I work with like 12-year-olds who are like, you puppets, like that's for kids. And I'm like, bro, you're a kid. You're 12 years. It makes me feel like such a grouchy old man. But but then you get them into the puppet, and suddenly these adults or teenagers are playing. And the puppet is sort of this like beautiful excuse where it's like, well, it's puppetry, it's a fine art, and like whatever, blah, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what it is. You are playing with a toy, with an object. and you're telling stories and you're doing voices and you're breathing life into it. And I've seen so many people, especially this is when I work with kids, really quiet kids or kids who are nervous about doing it, who are nervous about being there. But as soon as they have their object, and I use a lot of like bound material, simple objects, like not beautiful puppets, but like plastic bags and like paper. And these kids sometimes will go from I'm reserved and I'm nervous and I'm apprehensive to like, oh, but my puppet isn't. So this puppet is actually excited to be here and is walking around and talking to other puppets. And I am by no means a puppet therapist. I know that it is a tool that is used in a lot of therapy practice, but I can see why. I
Mm.
think that kind of separation and that sort of distance and to be able to use an object to portray your feelings and to do the things that you're maybe afraid to do. It's amazing. And that happens to me too, all the time.
Mm.
I use the puppet to do things that I could not do. And sometimes that's physically, like I can make my puppet do a backflip and I can't do a backflip. But sometimes it's this puppet can be emotionally raw or this puppet can be angry. Like you're saying, like this puppet can yell in a way that I never would. I'm never yelling. I'm never mad. Maybe I am a little because then the puppet is.
Why would my puppet be mad?
My sister, she's not a physiotherapist, but she went to school for, oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher this. I hope she never listens to this. She went to school for something in that field where she's not able to diagnose, but she's able to give clinical impressions, which I always think is really funny. Like she can't tell someone you have this muscle problem, but she can be like, my clinical impression is I think you have, that's how I feel when I'm talking about puppet therapy. I'm like, I can't say that this puppet will help you, with this problem. But my clinical impression is that puppetry can heal anything.
I mean, absolutely. Like, there's definitely moments where I'm working with kids and even just noticing some themes come up. Like, I'm like, oh wow, we'll do just like a stream of consciousness like dance party with their favorite is actually Maleficus because he's pure chaos. Like he's chaotic. He's like
Oh,
he's a wild man. Um, but they love him. So like so much comes out through Maleficus and he
mhm.
he can be a little mean sometimes. So but like they play out a lot of different kind of characters and roles and it is the first time when I work with Maleficus is like the first time they see an adult just kind of like a little bit like weird.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing? But they fall in love with him. And I did a theater camp where all the kids made him like cookies for his birthday. They were like, today is his birthday. They made him a birthday hat. Like, it was a lot. I was like, wow, they've
Wow.
really, yeah, there's
There's
art.
something about the creativity that like comes off of like the amount of times where I do like mask making workshops with kids or like making little puppets and like the instruction is so simple. Like I give the bare minimum, here's how to turn this object into a puppet. And then I come back 20 minutes later and like the colors and the details and like I think everyone has this intrinsic sense of like creativity in different ways, obviously, but like it's I think puppets are a really great vessel for that
Yeah,
creativity.
it can be as simple or as complicated as it needs to be. Like
Yeah.
you can have very little mechanism and amplify as much as you like. And it's like once you have your basic mechanisms, then it's like, okay, cool, we can go as deep or as simple as possible.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Yeah. No, I love the role that it plays, and it is interesting to see how much kind of inner work that happens accidentally just by being able to express yourself with something that's a little separate.
Yeah.
So I would definitely love to learn more about puppet therapy. I don't think I'd become a puppet therapist just because, like, it
Yeah. I
seems,
definitely
yeah.
more on the puppet side than the therapist side, but I would love to learn more. I can't remember where. There is somewhere, I think it's maybe in the States that does do online puppet therapy like workshops, like not obviously getting a degree or anything, but it's like learning more about the practice, which I think it's really helpful because I also do kind of feel like puppeteers have a responsibility to understand the power of puppets.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, like I have so much to learn still. I've
Yeah.
not learned everything I can to fully wield the power, but you can really, I think puppets can really change people and change systems, like puppets as protest and puppets as, you know, activism. Like I think. there is a lot of power in being able to bring an object to life because it's like you're a magician. I was in
Mm.
a rehearsal for the herds, and all of the puppets were lying on the ground and waiting for us to like lift them up and bring them to life and rehearse. And I was just like, are we like, is this necromancy? Like, are we really just like taking this dead thing and like raising it up and like giving it like it was very like I don't know, I was having very macabre Frankenstein ideas that day. But
It's really surreal because like I've been working with some of my students with puppets and they really enjoy working with them and they call me through the puppet when they're working with the puppet. They call me creator. They're like creator and I'm like I'm like I'm like don't give me a god complex, you know, like creator. I'm like, but then I'm like, I am animating this force. Like, what force is animating me? And like these weird things, just because, like, even just when I'm working with the kids, like when they'll try to take the puppet off my hand, the puppet's like, "Don't de-animate me! Don't de-" Like they start to freak out. They're like, "Don't do it!" And they're like, like I'm like, "Oh, that's so." It's a little freaky. So, like, it is a little freaky. You're like,
One of the first things I do, especially when I have like a class of skeptical 12-year-olds,
mm,
and is I'll just to illustrate how puppetry works, is I'll take an object, a pencil, a shoe, a pair of scissors, and I'll animate it a little bit. I'll like breathe, I'll bring it to life, and I'll walk around and I'll be like, what is the character doing? And they're like, it's walking, I guess. And I'll be like, okay. And then it's like the shoe's like, And I'm like, what's the character doing? They're like, I guess it's thinking. And then I do a little, and it walks around and makes these little sounds. And then I drop it. And everyone goes, and I'm like, was that shoe alive? And they're all like, well, I guess it was because we all just saw it die. And there's something about that like reluctance in some young people to believe that an object is alive that
mm,
I don't know, you're able to get them to admit to it when you kind of show them like you did believe the shoe was alive because all of a sudden my hands are off of it and now it's just a shoe and you were all kind of
mhm.
sad and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, shoot, you're right.
I felt grief for this shoe that was never alive, but that you brought
Yeah.
to life. Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's very interesting. Something that's very natural for me is engaging with puppets. Like I do love speaking with puppets because there is this innocence to them and it feels like I'm speaking with like kids and I find it's easy to talk to kids because I feel like I don't know, it's very easy to talk with kids and I can talk with adults, but like, usually the ones that are willing to talk to puppets are the easiest ones to talk to. It's a great vetting system. You're like, if you don't want to talk to my puppet, you talk to me because we speak the same language here. Yeah, if you're not willing to like suspend disbelief and play in this realm for a little bit, like, uh,
Yeah.
it's really important to be able to like have that play, and I do really appreciate that role that you play and being held in the container. The first time I did go to your classes, I was like, I felt so held in the container of play, and I was like, wow, I'm not running the play. Like I can just really like just enjoy this container of being silly and telling stories and like making mistakes and it was really nice. Like there were no wrong answers and it was like I was like, okay, okay, I like this. This is what I try to give my students, but I don't always give myself.
No, totally. It's such a like, and I'm so happy to hear that because that, I mean, truly, you would have probably been at one of the first maybe ever puppet workshops I've ever done. Because
Oh,
at that point I would have been, a few months out of my puppet training and like just and like the Encounters of an Adventurous Snail was my first like original puppet show. But I've been teaching before that, even when it wasn't puppetry. And I think there's such a I talk a lot about like there's this real idea with like learning where it's like the binary of success and failure. And every time you don't hit a success, you're not moving forward. And I feel like it's really kind of the other way around where like both success and failure are really acceptable, exciting options because both of them move you forward. Like you learn from both. Sometimes you learn from failure more than success because sometimes you just succeed and you don't actually know what you did that worked so well. But
Mm,
sometimes you do something and it's like, oh, this didn't work exactly how I wanted, or this wasn't as effective as I'd hoped. And that is pushing you forward. I think the only reason I've learned as much as I have is because when you can reframe like failure, whatever you want to describe that as, oh, I'm actually now going to do even more of what I want to do because I've learned what to do, what not to do, how to do it better, how to adjust, how to work stronger with others. And I think that's really important because I think as soon, especially young people, but adults too, as soon as there's a sense of I could do this wrong, people are, I think, a lot more hesitant to explore and to be open. And
mm,
puppetry, theater, improv, whatever, like you have to be open because it's
mm,
so much more fun and beautiful and enriching when you're open. And it's, I think, a lot easier to be open when you really can't fail in the traditional sense
mm.
because you're either gonna learn or learn. And both are great if you're there to learn.
So, where did you like this seems like a very healthy relationship to being a student and a teacher. Like, did you find like how did you get that? Was that always there? Did you have a few significant teachers that popped it in there?
It's a great question. It's like, I think in a lot of ways, I don't know, I guess I'm like a pedagogy nerd, and I hate the idea of like, I have always resistant when someone's like, "Oh, read this book." It's this person talking about how to teach or like how to like learn directing or acting. And I'm
Mm,
like, you can't read a book and learn those things. But then I do understand that in my own head, I've got a book's worth of like, this is how I do this, and this is my teaching practice, and this is what I believe, and whatever. Um, I think I was really blessed with very good theater teachers in my life. In high school, my drama and English teacher, Mrs. Lawrence, had really an unfettered belief in me, which I think back then, as a 16, 17-year-old, I was like, why does this adult believe in me so much? Like, what does she see that I don't? But I ultimately, at the end of the day, I think she just saw that I was a really determined theater nerd. And she really gave me the space and the trust
mm,
to grow and to learn and to take initiative. And she was the huge reason I was able to direct Little Shop of Horrors in grade 12 because there was not going to be a show that year because of a teacher strike. And she really empowered me to do that and to take extra initiative. And I think that really I think I think she taught me that like, oh, theater is fun, not just to do and to play improv games, but also to like to learn about, like to learn about theater history, to learn about practice. And then in university, once I switched slowly through marine biology and animal behavior, and our one semester where I was like, wait, do I want to be a geologist? I did not. Rocks did not interest me. Although ironic, I've now ended up back on objects that aren't alive. So maybe there's more to the rocks than I thought.
You could
But
animate a rock if you wanted
you really
to.
could. But yeah, then when I moved fully into the theater program, like I got so lucky. The faculty at DAL at the Found School of Performing Arts um, were really awesome. And there
Mm,
wasn't a lot of puppetry in the program, just because that's not what they do at FSPA. But Don Brandis did have a puppetry class, more of a puppet theory class that I was able to audit in my last year, which was eye-opening, and
mhm,
she's amazing. And yeah, like Matt Walker gave me a lot of, I think, a lot of the good teaching strategies I have.
mm,
Um, because I was sort of like, oh, I think the way he's teaching us as university students is actually like a great way to teach people of every age. Because there
mm,
is like, I think, I feel very strongly about, giving young people the intellectual benefit of the doubt. And obviously, you have to teach 5-year-olds differently than 15-year-olds. But I think being given that creative trust and license is something that
mhm,
I've picked up from teachers of mine that I try and pass on. Uh,
mm.
I don't remember if that answers the question.
It absolutely does, and it's interesting because it's kind of twofold where it's like when you're when you're teaching, like there's two kinds of teachers that teach you what you want. The teachers who definitely do what you don't want, and the teachers who definitely do what you do want. And it's like they both play an important role. And like the ones that really frustrate you, that you're like, hey, you're not letting me express my creative freedom. Like those inform your need to create containers where you can do that. And that's essentially what this is all about, is like I want to receive information from as many people as I admire on how to live a life of creative freedom,
Mhm.
because I think I personally believe that when people can express themselves and they're not like shut down, they're much less likely to cause as much harm in the world because they're not like internally punishing themselves just for existing. And like so much harm I think is caused just by like the internal self-loathing that we have from not being able to express ourselves over the years because we're told that our way is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And I think I love your use of the word container because while it's not a word I've used, I think it's how I think about like creating space. Like I
Mm-hmm.
like the idea that it's not just having, a healthy and like trusting and warm classroom,
Mm-hmm.
but just like that it is actually a space where it is welcoming to be inside, but it is also welcoming to leave things in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, containers are really important to me because I've rebelled against them. I've struggled with them, but I've loved them. Like I hate the list and I love the list. So I do like I'm like as long as I'm kind of making the list, if someone's like imposing a list on me, I can be resistant, but if it feels like a list that I can get behind, then I'm like, yeah, give me that list. But everything is a container, and I think that's one of the struggles that creative people struggle with,
Mhm.
especially like neurodivergent creative people as well, is like this rebellion against the container. But I'm always
Yeah.
like, everything's a container, a canvas, a puppet, a body. It's all a
Yeah.
container. And yeah, I guess this is like maybe a more personal question, but as far as your containers go, like if you had a list of things, if like a writer, for your containers of things that you needed, whether or not you have them, but things that really support your creative freedom. You're like, I'm at my peak when I am with people who are kind or people who push me or rooms that are clean, rooms that are chaotic, like whatever that it is. Like, do you have any nourishments that you're like, if I had a writer, I want all these things in my
Mm.
green room?
Oh, this is a great question. I'm one of those like pedantic people who's like, okay, now I have 20 follow-up questions, but I think I'm gonna try and answer without overcomplicating it. I think for me, having whenever someone asks like, what is your mission statement or like, I try to develop an answer to that question that I think is sort of the works to answer this as well. I think for me, the spirit and um the not proposal, the idea that when you're in a space with me or a container or room, that the spirit is of collaborative creation. So I guess like non-hierarchical creation structures.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've been working on we're coming up on 6 years for the Unnatural Disaster Theater Company. And it's just like the absolute best work I've ever made is in a room with other people where every voice is being heard equally, where it's not, you know, as a director, I try and frame as much of what I'm doing as facilitation as I can,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the antiquated vision of the theater director is telling people what to do, which I just think is conducive to mediocre art. Whereas facilitation is working collaboratively and creating collectively, and the facilitator just has to be the one to guide that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, having like collaborative creation is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be on my emotional rider.
That's
Um,
yeah. That's like
yeah,
like leadership rather than rulership.
yeah. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
totally. And I think also this has been a more recent like not discovery, but like something I've been trying to work more into my practice is this idea of like as artists, I think we're failing our team when we don't prioritize community care. So that's both for the team, but then also just like the wider community. So trying to find ways to create where the most important thing isn't the product, but actually the people. Um, and this is, I think, a reckoning a lot of creative industries going through. But I think it's actually really simple at the end of the day, which is you need to have a structure that is robust enough that you can afford to prioritize community care.
Mm.
Um, which I should write down. That's actually the best I've ever worded it.
Well, perfect. We'll just get a little
Oh, it's going to be
screenshot.
recorded.
Yeah.
One.
Well, that's
Um,
actually really beautiful because I think it's really in a line. I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to say with
yeah.
the eco that you were working on, I do appreciate that you care about community care because I'm like, y'all are going to work on the environment And then, like, if you're not taking care of yourselves, you're part of the environment. So it'd be hypocritical for all the messages that you're sharing with your work for you to, in turn, just treat yourself poorly. And then there
Yeah,
would be a dissonance, and people would sense that. And then they'd be like,
totally.
what's
Yeah,
off?
no, and it is. And I think one of the greatest, I could rant and rave about the herds and about eco for forever, but the production team did such an incredible job of caring for all of us, which is, I think, a miraculous feat because we were a team of 42 puppeteers from 20 different countries, um, all with different backgrounds, different needs, and the amount of effort and energy that went into prioritizing care for the whole team, not just the eco team, but like
Mhm.
everyone was really like as a producer, I was inspired almost as much as a puppeteer because I was like, wow, if you
Taking
can
notes.
if you can tour 50 people around the world and everyone is taken care of, everyone's needs are being heard. Um, but then beyond just how the production team took care of us, like the way that we took care of each other and supported each other, it was probably the most like I'm not a crier. I'm not an emotional person. Like I said, I let that come out through the puffets. But there was a day in Stockholm in Sweden where we just finished a pretty massive show, stampeding through the streets with these life-size puppet animals. And I clearly had eaten or had something before the show that I'm pretty sure had food poisoned me because the show finished and I was very sick and was like collapsed on the street in the old part of Stockholm. And just like the swarm of my friends and collaborators and like co-puppeteers who were coming over to me and sitting with me and bringing me Gatorade and, walking me over into the sun when I got, too cold and back into the shade when I got too hot. And I was just like weeping because I felt so loved and cared for. And I think that's why that project worked, not just because there were beautiful puppets and because it was a cool concept. It was a team, a truly massive team who actually cared so deeply for each other. And
Mhm.
like within the first week, I was like ready to lay it on the line for these people who I just met. And it's really, that was, I think, the most profound and beautiful part. And this
Mhm.
is saying something because we were like, I was an elephant in Venice stampeding down the streets and like we climbed a glacier with the puppets. And still at the end of the day, the people profoundly changed me the most.
That's Now I wonder if that's like, because there are many different mediums that I've explored, and I wonder if it's does do you feel that the fact that it's puppets specifically because you have to breathe together and you have to be a team, like you can't be in competition with puppets, like do you feel that's a big reason why it just filters out that?
I think it's a huge part of it. I think if we were just 42 actors brought together to like do street performance as actors with no puppets, it's not that I don't think we could have gotten to the place we did, but I think it would have taken 3 or 4 times as long because we would have been spending hours literally just breathing together and like
Mm,
holding each other. And like before every performance, whoever you're on a puppet with, you just like get in a little huddle and put your heads together and your hands on each other's back and just breathe for a while because you have to synchronize your breath because you're about to be one gorilla or one kudu or one, so and that is like, it's a really beautiful, intimate thing to like synchronize your breath with someone else. Um, so I think that is 100% part of the reason we were
mm,
so close so quickly is within the first few days, we were breathing together and we were like working with paper to give it breath and working with these gorgeous animal puppets
mhm,
that were designed by Ukwanda, which is a team in South Africa who were there training us and who were also like huge custodians of this like community care and this like warm space. And yeah, it was really like I have so much I want to bring from that into my own practice and to bring home and to bring to
mhm,
Canada and to my puppetry and what I share. Because yeah, my mind was expanded further than I think I
mhm,
knew it would or could be in
mhm.
great ways, in puppet ways.
I really do believe that you can achieve ascension through puppeteering, through anything if you go deep enough and long enough. Even through the scattering of doing everything, you can find a through line and become enlightened, so to speak, for sure. But and potentially whatever it is that's glowing for you is the thing that's going to like wake you up to your fullest potential. But I find everything that I've seen on puppets, the essence of puppeteers, the slight fear that I had around exploring puppets, like are all indicators of like, oh, this is something big. Like it's big. I watched a little Jim Henson mini tutorial of animating like a potato. Like he went real like ordinary objects, and the energy that he had with his co puppet pal was, I was like, wow, this is so, there was this gentleness, this sweetness, and I was just like, I'm like, man, this is really nice. So beautiful. And yeah, it is a really beautiful container. It's a really beautiful container. So kind of tying in, you saying you were coming from, you want to bring all your information back here. So how do we access all of these beautiful gifts that you have to offer? You have some shows coming up. Where do we?
Um, yeah, lots of puppetry on the horizon. At the Halifax Fringe Festival, I'm doing a show called The Augur, which is traditionally, so it's I'm still really working on the description of this one. So the augur is a little table puppet. It started from a desire to experiment with making biodegradable puppets. So he's made almost entirely of material that would com like bone and moss and wood. Um, and so he's a very spooky little guy. And he's an augur. So like in ancient Greece, the augur would like read people's fortunes through the birds, practicing augury, which is like a very strange ancient form of like soothsaying or fortune telling. And the way the show works is that audience members come down and ask a question and kind of commune with the augur. And he's this really spooky little guy, but then he's also a bit of a curmudgeon and a little bit sassy, and he tells people their fortunes through improvised poetry. And our biggest feedback we always got were people love the show. This is probably the most popular show I've done, which I never would have guessed when I made it. But um, the request that we always get is, "Ooh, I wish that I got to be one of the volunteers to have my fortune read." So what we're doing at the Halifax Fringe Festival, Jesse and myself we have the tarot reading room at the Neighborhood Witch on Barrington Street booked. So we're actually doing private sessions with the augur. So a really intimate, bespoke puppet experience where parties of 1 to 4 people can book a small session, go to the reading room. It's going to be all set, dressed beautifully and spooky and electric candles, and yeah, and get to commune with this little puppet who I've had a lot of people after a show reach out to me and be like, he was right. Like the prediction came true, which is like even more spooky because I'm obviously just a trained improviser and puppeteer putting on a show, but there is something about how much people want to believe. And like I had someone ask like, will my hockey team win the game later tonight? And the augur usually gives bad news. That's part of the whole Bob show.
Oh no.
The augur's like, no, sorry, they're not. And that person reached out and was like, jokingly, like, hey, tell that augur, screw you. They lost. So I'm really excited to be doing that at the Fringe. I think we have slots left on September 1st, 3rd, and 4th. Um, but yeah, that's coming up in September. And then in October, I have a whole brand new full-length puppet show that I'm developing right now, which is also a little spooky. There's something about the kind of like autumn macabre puppet vibe that people really enjoy, including myself. And that's a show called Sleep Demons, which is a table puppet show about sleep paralysis
That's
and technology's
terrifying.
impact on sleep. Inspired by just that almost everyone who's experienced sleep paralysis talks about like this little demon sitting on their chest. So the table of the table puppet show is going to be the sleeping person and a whole series of different puppets and styles. And it's when people are like, this sounds too scary, I'm like, it's Scooby-Doo scary. It's Nightmare Before Christmas scary, like PG-13 scary.
Yeah.
Um, Although I'm not done making it yet, so maybe it is going to be even scarier.
Yeah,
But
sleep paralysis is really spooky. Like it's happened to me twice and it's uncanny. It's really trippy.
yeah, so I'm really excited about that, and to just I'm also really interested in exploring like technology's impact on health and mental health and sleep. And I think that's kind of folding
Mm.
in an interesting way how technology haunts us and is sort of like anyway, no spoilers for the show,
Mhm.
but
Oh,
it's a
this
little
is
bit about that.
exciting. It's
Uh,
very current conversations. Yeah, this sounds
Yeah.
really exciting.
So, and that'll be a part of this October. There's a group who are starting a brand new puppet festival. Atlantic Canada has never, or at least not for a very, very, very long time, had a puppet festival. So I'm working with a small group of puppet artists on starting one. So this October, we're trying to brand as Puppet Month and just encouraging people to do more puppet activities, to do shows. So a bunch of us have stuff happening. And it's all culminating on November 1st at the Ross Creek Center for the Arts in Canning. There's
Okay.
going to be a whole big puppet day. This is all coming together, so I guess don't hold me to any specific detail. But I'm really excited to be really celebrating puppetry for the month of October. That feels
Mhm.
really cool. Getting to hopefully do some more workshops. I'm really hoping to do some more workshops sort of inspired by the herds to talk
Mhm.
about that style of puppetry and about the experience and about puppetry as activism.
Mhm.
Um,
And also the
and
accessibility, like it was all cardboard, right?
it was, yeah, the puppets were all made out of recycled materials. At their core, there was some repurposed plywood to
Mm.
give them some structure, but all the rest was essentially
Mhm.
cardboard.
Amazing. Yeah, because that's something that a lot of people have spoken to me. They're like, "Oh my God, I love your puppet. I've always wanted to do puppets, but like I can't afford it." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Like there are so
Absolutely.
many options, you know?" So
They
it's
really, really are. And it's like amazing how effective simple, cheap puppets can be.
Mhm.
Like, I'm always trying to impart that, especially with young people, where I'm like, today you all made a puppet out of a shoe or a garbage bag. Like,
Mhm.
go home, go through the recycling, and you're set. Like, it's so, so much more about breathing the life and focus and energy into the object than it having to be beautiful.
Mhm.
Now, beautiful puppets are great. You have
Yeah,
several behind you right now.
right.
Unequivocally awesome. But simple puppets can be just as effective, which I think
Absolutely.
when people realize it's like, oh, I do have the capacity to make and do.
Hmm. Yeah, it's almost surprising sometimes when you're like, "Oh yeah, I can do this. I can do this." And then take that leap. Yeah, I think you're really good at helping people take that first jump. So I appreciate that you've done that, you know, for me and many other people since then. I didn't realize it was one of your first because it was such a good container. So that's awesome.
I'm so
I'm
glad you really were. And I think you're actually maybe even the first individual who has been excited about puppetry after like seeing a show I did or something. So
really
I hold that
okay.
very dearly to my heart
Huh.
because I love spreading the love of puppetry and seeing it blossom in people who are actually like doing really amazing things with it
Hmm.
makes me so happy.
Yeah, well, if you ever need a hype guy for your festival, I will hype it up because I really do believe puppets are healing and you know, I think they're so important and they're so fun and they've helped so many of my students, help me express, help so many people connect, help people unpack, just help adults get into play, just everything. Also just a great container if you're like a multi-potentialite who has so many things that they like to do. It's like great. You can just put it all into puppets because you can sew, you can design, you can be a mechanic, like or what are they called? Architect? What are those people that build me me I think mechanic. That's what they're
Yeah,
called.
or like people make like
Engineer.
the engineer, yeah.
That's the word. Yeah, it's like you
But
can really
all of them
all
really
of
at the
them.
end.
All of them. Yeah, you can be all of them. And it's like if you have that slightly, you know, everything mind, many tabs, like puppets are great. You're like, I can do it all. They don't have to feel trapped. So,
Yeah, it's so true. And there's so many different styles. Like whenever I do a puppet workshop and it's like an hour long, because that's all the time the school has, I go in and I just preface by saying like, I'm gonna try and teach you today what normally should take like a week.
mm,
And that's gonna scratch the surface of puppetry.
yeah.
So like don't stop after I leave. Like keep
Hmm.
because it's just the fundamentals are the same for every kind of puppetry, but once you have those fundamentals, like I've feel I've been a professional puppeteer for five, no, 6 years almost, and I still feel like I've just scratched the surface,
Hmm.
like in terms of what is possible. And every time I travel or I see a new puppeteer work or a new show, my mind is constantly like, oh, I never thought of that. And
Hmm.
it's both ends of the spectrum, like, oh, this is so complicated and incredibly brilliant. I never would have thought of it. Or, oh, this is so simple. I never would have thought of it.
Hmm.
And both are like so expansive and like mind opening, and getting to be in Europe and meet European puppeteers and seeing
Hmm.
work over there was just like, yeah, it's such an international art form that is
Hmm.
kind of like, it's funny you meet. I was at the Pact Con in Halifax this year, which is the Professional Association of Canadian Theaters, and I had multiple people I knew come up to me and be like, Logan, look, that guy over there, he's a puppeteer. Look, go, Logan, there's a puppeteer over there. We told him about you. And then like eventually I go over to meet this guy who I didn't know. And he's like, Logan? And I'm like, Zach? And he's like, yeah, are you a puppeteer? And I'm like, yeah, are you? And like instantly it was like just there's this kind of kinship because
Hmm.
of what a niche magical, sometimes performing puppetry almost feels like a magic show because there is almost this level of like disbelief that is suspended. And
Hmm.
then meeting other magicians who practice the same magic is like, hmm, hmm, hmm.
It is as like nerdy and cool as magic for sure, where it's like it like I'm surprised that not as many people do it, but I'm like I guess it is niche and I guess technically it's strange, but I'm like it's the coolest thing in the world. Like it's so cool. Yeah.
I think like anything, it takes a lot of like time and like energy to learn.
Hmm.
It's kind of, I don't know what I compare it to. It's a kind of thing that takes a lot of time and energy to get really good at, but also in a day you could learn enough to get started. Like, and anyone, like
Hmm.
it's not, you need no, like, I'll probably never be able to do a backflip, and that's okay. I've accepted that. But I think anyone can do puppetry because puppetry can be anything. Like,
Hmm.
no matter your ability or your capacity, if
Hmm.
you can believe an object is alive, you can be a puppeteer. And I
Hmm.
think anyone has that capacity in some way or another, which I think is also cool because it's very universal.
Hmm. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I guess now we can like wind down, but before we wind down, if you have kind of that feels so conclusive, honestly. You're like it's I'm like, no, that's cherry on top, honestly. But if you had any clothing statements or things that you really wanted to share, as well as like the socials where we can find you or email list where we can like get our toe in the door for all the juicy
Yeah,
things.
totally. I'll do my plug. Um,
Plug.
yeah. So I'm the artistic director of the Unnatural Disaster Theater Co., which is an environmental theater collective. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Unnatural Disaster Theater. Our website is unnaturaldisaster.ca. Got real lucky with that domain. And you can learn all about our stuff coming up at Fringe. We have a lot of programs and opportunities for emerging artists to get support and training. Beyond those, I try and be as open door as possible. So please, like any artist, emerging artist, professional artist, anyone, like the inbox is always open. The door is always open at the Nest, which is on Quinpool Road. It's a multi-art space office where we have a script library and printer and other resources that we're happy to help offer to artists who need them. And yeah, oh, I'm Logan, I guess. That's me specifically. You can find me online at Logan Robins, just one B in Robins. Uh, and I'm always up to stuff, often puppet wise, but also other kinds of weird theater and art. The final thing I'll plug, because I think it's tangentially adjacent, is I also run the Lucky Star Bazaar, which is a local arts collective vending machine. So that's in the former Video Difference on Quinpool, which is now the 2B Theater Hub. And it is a vending machine that is full of local art, jewelry, prints, stickers, magnets. And it's a really, really cool initiative that is like visual art, but also kind of like experiential. It's very cool. You can find that at Lucky Star Bazaar. online. And but those that's me. I don't know. I think you're right that my final words are pretty good. I don't think I can top those.
They were
Uh,
rich. Honestly, there are some moments where I was like, did he read my pro? Like I had a little list of things that I wanted, and I was like, man, he's intuitive. Must be that puppet breath.
That's that puppet breath. It's yeah, no, I just love talking. So I think I do well on podcasts because I just talk in circles until I say I think exactly the right thing.
Amazing.